Hello, everybody. This is your host, Khadija D. Welcome back to Hear Our Voices, the place where you tell stories, get resources, and change the narrative of homelessness. Thank you for coming back, guys. I just want to get some things in the way. Please, if you would like to be on a podcast, we would love to have you as a guest. I am thinking right now, as you might know, we're from New York City. We're based in New York City. That's where I live. I live in Brooklyn, BK all day. And we mostly give resources for New York City, but I'm thinking maybe to try to get resources from other places. The truth is, people all over the country listen to the podcast, even though it's very small. People all over listen. So if you would like to send in resources that I could read or probably put on Facebook or something like that, I mean, YouTube and Instagram and TikTok, you could definitely do that. I'm not sure about having a long segment about it, but I can read certain things so anybody out of state can, if they see this or hear about this, they can give it to their community. But most of our information for now, because we are small, will be resources out of New York City. But you just never know who's listening to you. I have people ask me for stuff who lives outside of New York. So, you know, not per se resources, but for other things. So you just never know. And I would like to be prepared or have things that people might want or need from me. So yeah, that's one thing. And if you are a person who wants to tell your experience, I would love to have you on. It doesn't matter what state you're from. We will take your stories. Just make sure you're just a place that America owns, and then we got you. Because homelessness is different depending on where you live. And we definitely want to show how America, 'cause that's where I live at the moment, how the situations for families are. The requirement is you have to be a family with a child under 21 in that family while you go homeless. Homelessness, I think a lot of people think this is a misconception. Depending what system you're talking about, regular homelessness in the eyes of certain, I want to say governance, is people who lives in shelter, right? But homelessness could also be doubled up. If you look at, I know for New York City, I don't know about any other state, they'll ask you if you're doubled up basically when you do like the lunch forms. And that's how they have like a real accurate account of who's actually homeless because the lunch forms would ask this question so they know who actually doesn't have a home. I don't know why the system is broken into like that. I don't know why we do that to ourselves instead of just having one big system that can house everybody. But that's how they do it. And when they do that segregation of things, people who are doubled up don't get as much, they don't get no funds usually in New York City to get things. You can get they have a program at Path that if you go to Path first, which is where the intake center is in New York, if you go there first, you can actually get the city reps voucher without actually going to the shelter. But most people don't realize that you can. I've talked about it before on this podcast. Most people don't realize that that program is there. They just think you have to go to shelter. But the program is basically in a nutshell. Instead of going to shelter, they'll give you the voucher in a sense, but you have to stay with somebody else and they'll pay that person rent for you staying there. I don't want to say a number of how much the person will get paid. One, because just you never know. You might hear this 5 years from now, you're like, that's not the right accurate amount. You just have to go to the Pat Center in the Bronx. Hopefully by the time 5 years from now, we also have different centers because having one is ridiculous for a place that has five boroughs. It doesn't make sense. So yeah, we're definitely on trying to do policy for that to have more than one intake center in New York City. Apparently, back in the days, they had more than one, which to me just makes sense. Traveling with yourself or with a kid from Queens to the Bronx, which I have done several times, whether pregnant or with a child, is annoying and exhausting. But now they have the rule, as if you don't know, this is a new rule. It's actually in the books, but hopefully everybody there is actually applying, applying it. You don't have to bring your child to shelter anymore. The only problem is that depending on how long the process take, it makes sense to just bring a kid with you because you might not be able to pick them up or have somebody to pick them up if you're a single parent like myself. So it's like a win-lose situation because they do take forever to get everything processed. So it's up to what you want to do and what works best for your family, but that is an option, not to bring your child to the intake center, but you just got to think about who's picking up your kids from school if they are in school, daycare, things of that sort. But yes, but if you would love to be in the podcast, if you were homeless, housing insecure, those kind of things, you definitely qualified. We'd love to see where you are now because we have to realize people have to know that being homeless is not your whole story. This is a part of your story. Just like being a child is a part of your story, to be a child to be an adult. It's not all of you. You know what I'm saying? That's not your identity. We want people to understand that facts. So we would love to see if you have a nonprofit, if you are doing a small business, what are you up to? So people can like aspire to, yeah, you was there before, but now look where you are now. And if you're still there at the moment, that's okay. We all have our different walks in life, and if you're not there where you would like to be, like I don't think personally, I don't think where I need to be, right? But I do have an apartment. I'm on my way to my journey. And if your journey has started but it's not where you thought you would be, especially as you get older in less life, it's crazy. It's okay. It's only a part. It's not the whole thing, I promise you. I promise you. Okay? So, yeah. So if you would like to come on, definitely do that. And yeah, let's get into this podcast. Today is me by myself. I have some guests lined up, but doing my schedule, I'm the only person doing this. I don't have a studio, um, and things like that. This year has been we've been doing a whole thing at the Family Action Board, which is called, we call it the FAB. And if you would like to be a part of the team, if you do fit the requirements of, what do you call it, of the requirements of the family in the shelter, you can. We are going to also have volunteer opportunities. So you don't have to be, for the volunteer opportunities, you don't have to be in that parameters of being a family. You could be anybody who wants to help and like to help us push certain policies for families and shelters. Or if you would like to help with the podcast or help with filming, anything like that. We're gonna have those things coming up next year, so listen out for those things because we will be advertising on here and our social media platform, Instagram, TikTok. We haven't been on as much, and yeah, and Threads. So if you want to hear more information, definitely follow us. By the time you hear this, hopefully it hasn't passed yet. They have free formula for babies. The link will be in the link tree. It's just if you follow us on our social media accounts, things like those kind of activities, I post them as I see them. So I saw that somebody's giving out free formula for babies. And formula is very expensive. So I put that on our Instagram. So if you would like to get resources in general, certain like um toy giveaways, things like that, I either share them in a story or I put them on our feed. I think it's very important to have resources for people in general. So I make sure I put that out there. If it's not good for you, like the resources might be good for somebody that you know around you. So definitely follow us on social media. And yeah, it's cool stuff. I hope you enjoy it. So today's topic is actually about housing and homelessness. I do some work here, like as consultant here and there with different organizations. I do stuff for City Hall. And in general, when people think about homelessness, housing for some reason is not the forefront. They think about housing after you're homeless and then you go into housing. They don't think about why, like before, the prevention stage a lot of the times. They don't think about why is this person in this predicament? It's because they don't have a house. That's why it's called homeless, right? But even when we say homeless, even though home is the first part of the word, we think as an afterthought. A lot of times in the policy world, I feel like a lot of time, like this policy world, just this legislation, stuff like that, people don't put the two together. It's good to, there's two different things, but it needs to be added together, right? It needs to be conjoined together because housing is important. Like, if you have housing, you won't be homeless, right? Housing for New York City, and that's where I have like the most facts for. God, that's where I live. I do work here and there in the US, but most of my stuff is in New York City. Housing is so important, right? And housing, a lot of times for us at this moment, a lot of people are outpriced out of their neighborhoods. And when they say they're going to build affordable housing, they're not really building it affordable. And when people always say, when you use the word affordable, it's like, Affordable to whom? What's affordable? To me, $1,000 a month is affordable. But we think to a person like in probably, I feel like Florida's not as cheap as people make it seem as like anymore. But like Florida or Texas or certain things like that, $1,000 for a one bedroom apartment, like, oh, that's kind of high. I went to Texas last year and this young lady, I want to say she had a two or three bedroom apartment. I think it was a house she was renting out. One of the above, I forgot what it is. But it was bigger than what I have right now. I live in a one bedroom apartment in Niger, right? And she paid $900. My rent is over $1,000. Yes. I live in Niger and I pay over $1,000 in rent. People think that we only pay a certain amount, which I don't know where they get this misnomer from of that. Some people do have cheap rents. They do. But a lot of people do their rent is not cheap. So um it's just affordable to whom and it's a lot of things. I think what it is, a lot of stuff is intersecting. Example, like I said before, we say um housing and homelessness. But we have to also think about how much people are getting paid. There's a lot of intersections into this thing. But I think to go back to what I was talking about before, they are united, right? People need to be able to have a place to put their head where they could feel safe and be happy, not put into a corner and put into just something. And if not, the place is nasty, the place has rats, the place has roaches, it has mold. These things are not livable places, right? And we got to think about the housing stock. They say New York City don't have a lot of housing stock. I feel like I hear a lot of different things. Honestly, I just want the facts, right? A lot of places are getting warehoused. That's one thing. They said the housing stock is low. They said if we took, from what I heard from some people, if we take every single homeless person out the shelter, right? We have space to put all these people in New York City? I don't really think we do, but I'm not a person who like knows about every single building in New York and really even how much vacant spots there are. Example, NYCHA has a lot of vacant apartments. People get upset like, NYCHA has all these vacant spots. Why we can't get in it? Some of those vacant spots are for DV clients. If you got Section 8, and they're for ACS clients. They're for foster kids. So they do have vacants, but it also has a population that sometimes it has to go out to, and that's why it hasn't been up. And if that's the case too, why are they not filling up with those people? It's a whole ring around the rosy kind of thing. But I think we have to really think about, like I said, to go back to my point, housing and homelessness and how to prevent things from happening and to make a person homeless. A lot of times in America, I can't say everywhere else in the world. I've never lived anywhere else. The most I've been out of the country is probably 2 months and change in my lifetime, right? And I was in Jamaica, and their system is very different. A lot of times, people, the way they see and do stuff is very interesting. I don't know what it is. I don't know the disconnect between the have and have nots. I think of Tyler Perry's show and how they think that we should be okay in the way that they give us things and the way things are done on our sector of the world. And they think that we should, one, take anything. Like example, take $16 an hour, but our rent is $2,000 a month. When you add that, like when you really add that up, the taxes they take out, all these things, it doesn't make sense, right? Um, and it's like they think, oh, these people are just lazy, they're not doing these things. People are working so many. I feel like I'm going back to my other concept of after. People are working so hard just to make ends meet. And it's like the haves are not getting it. Like this in their mind, they're saying, oh, just work a better job. People are trying to get the better jobs. The better jobs they're getting and they're still not making enough. Isn't that crazy? Some people, this one lady I know, she's a teacher. She works in the library and she does tutoring on the side. Wouldn't you think, right now they're trying to act like teachers are not professionals anymore, but before that, I would think, granted, teachers, I feel like a lot of times don't get paid that much. But it's like she had to work three different jobs, two to three different jobs just to survive. You know how insane that sounds? The whole system is a mess. The whole system is corrupt. The system is really is horrific. If people paid, if we were paid properly, right? The housing problem wouldn't be as bad. And like this is my point that I came up before. A lot of times, like in COVID, we knew COVID was could happen anytime, right? Let's just think about it. It's not, COVID wasn't the first time a flu had happened in the world. It's not going to be last time, right? But we always try to, instead of thinking about prevention, like if this happens, what's our, plan? We're trying to combat it while it's happening. If we did what we had to do ahead of time to make sure we can prevent people from being homeless, right? They wouldn't be homeless in the first place. If we give them better jobs, if we get them better mental health, and I want to be clear when I say mental health, not every good people have this misnomer that everybody who's in a shelter or homeless in general has a mental health problem or a drug problem. That is not true. I didn't have a mental health problem or drug. I guess if you count depression, but I was going through depression because they kicked me out basically on the streets, so I had nowhere to go. But and that's other stuff. But most people, especially in the hidden homeless, which is people in the shelter, they're not having these problems, right? That's like a different population of people. Not saying people are in the shelter are not having these, but if you look at the numbers that they have, and maybe every state is different. But I'm talking about New York City and the public shelters, right? This is not the inquiries that they having, right? If you pay people properly, getting proper mental health, if you stop selling them the fake American dream, they can be realistic in their lives. 'Cause I feel like that's one thing that they sell us and we go for it and we think we're doing the right thing and it's not really helping. I think the biggest one is the the wages. If the wages made sense for how much the rent actually was in New York, people first of all don't have to do plenty of jobs. They could just do one job. They could have time for their family and they could be so much like when you work so much, your body gets stressed out. Your body gets stressed out. Your mind is, I know your mind is part of your body, your brain is just overwhelmed and overstimulated because it's doing so much, trying to make things go, trying to juggle. It takes so much out of you. So imagine if a person was doing one job, got paid well, you get proper vacation time, you get to de-stress. That's a better run society. I don't think we realize that like New York City is stressful. I love it here, never would move anywhere else. But it's stressful, and it's because people have to work to survive. People in New York City are just literally surviving. And that's not a way to be living in life. Surviving is just it's very traumatic. It breaks you down little by little every day, and it chips a little bit of you. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's one of the things too with housing is that people just can't afford it. They just cannot afford it. And when they can afford it, you're giving them small spaces. So you want them to pay $3,000 for a shoebox and no storage. That's insane to me. And apparently, they're trying to make it a way to make smaller apartments in the next coming year. The apartments were already small. Why are you making them smaller? It doesn't make sense. But yes, a key thing we need to do is prevention, preventing people from going to the shelter, making and that one way, like I said before, is by giving them um mental health services, making sure they have a proper job, making sure people have proper trainings. A lot of times, one thing I want to say, college is not for everyone. Granted, I do have a degree. I have a good degree. But college is not for everybody. People can go to technical school. I think when kids, if they graduate out of high school, or if they going to graduate out of high school, they should be teaching them certain skills and making sure people. I know nowadays I feel like kids are a little bit different nowadays, but you have to be realistic with them. I tell my daughter all the time. She said, "Mommy, you on the phone all the time at work," and I'm like, "Baby, do you like to eat? Do you like me to pay rent? Do you want clothes and shoes in your bag?" Like you gotta be so because kids nowadays they actually why for everything. You have to tell them the truth. You gotta tell them, I'm speaking from a parent again. For single people, I don't have no advice as much. God didn't live that much of a single life, I feel like, to be honest. But you have to be practical with these kids. If you like all these things, you have to work for it. And if you teach them that you have everything you get, you have to work for it, they would treat things bit different, I would hope. And the way they spend money would be a little bit different. And they will think, maybe I don't go to college, but I maybe have to pick up a different skill to make sure I can, have something coming in. God forbid your parent dies when you're 20 and you didn't think about what my 5, 10 year plan, you're screwed, especially if your parents didn't leave you no money behind. And people cannot pay sometimes for life insurance because it's darn well expensive nowadays. It's expensive, period. So it's like you want to do those things, but it's like it's a whole thing, right? That's one thing I can say. So I think we need to make sure we have these systems in place. People like, oh my gosh, home base this, home base that. Granted, I personally have gotten, this is before COVID, I personally have gotten things from home base, right? I have. It took a long time to get it, but compared to now and then, my time was much faster than what is going on now. The waiting time for right now is ridiculous, right? We need to first make sure that home base is properly staffed. That's one thing. If you don't know nothing about home base, also, I'm trying to give you stuff that people policies we're working on also. We want home base to be properly staffed and make sure because like these city jobs or city things, they have a certain like I guess ceilings that people can't get paid more. We need to break a lot of those glass ceilings. To be honest, people on those kind of jobs end up leaving and not staying for longevity because they can't afford where they live. They can't afford stuff because it's not paying you that much. They use it more as a stepping stone instead of a place they want to stay. They need to pay those people properly, take out those ceilings, right? The glass ceilings of people how much their wages that they're making, and make sure also they get a certain amount of budget, and the budget apparently hasn't changed for years. If everything has gone up, right? Make an example. Because of a housing crisis and a wage problem, right? People have to now go to home base to get more services. That means maybe 2020, this is only example, that's not saying accurately. 2020, 20 people were going. Now 2025, 100 people are going. That means the group we initially started with a few years ago is way less than the group we have now. And apparently is increasing of people who are going to these services. That means if you needed a staff of two before for the 20, now you need a staff of at least 20 people, maybe like 15 to 20 people for the 100. I'm just giving you just numbers, right? That means the money you get from the city or wherever the money is coming from, the grants or whatever, have to increase more because you have more staff, you have more people coming in with needs, and you want people to needs to be met so they can be a productive person in society. Like I don't think people are thinking about the connections of things. If people can't work, they can't buy groceries, they're gonna steal. If people can't work, they can't pay for rent. They have to live on assistance. If we pay people properly, they won't have to be on food stamps. And we won't have to complain about people being on food stamps. Yes, there are going to be some people who are going to be on that categorically regardless, right? If a mom has more than one kid, and still, I think about that. Or if a person is disabled, or if they're pregnant, like these it's going to be factors people who are always going to be on food stamps regardless, right? People who have disabilities from when they was born. You know what I'm saying? So they can't even work or they can't do this. Those people don't understand. But if you pay people properly, they wouldn't have to depend on the system. You might say, "Oh my gosh, they need degrees." Because you have a degree does not say you're gonna have a good job. It does not say that. I was on public assistance from 18 to like I want to say I was on it for like 15 years or more, actually, right? And I had a degree. I got my degree in my 20s. My degree did not help me. Like now I'm not on it, but my degree did not help me. And I'm not saying all degrees are bad, or people be having better degrees than not me. I have a data degree. Granted, I'm using it right now by doing this podcast. I'm getting paid for it, of course. But people have better degrees than me and still struggling for a job. What does that tell? I'm not saying stop, don't go to school. I'm just saying we need to be realistic when we're telling people to these things, right? So I think we need to make sure that home base, which is supposed to be a prevention service thing, is properly equipped. And by properly equipping them with more workers and more money poured into that, I think that would be helpful. And that means people's house, if they're in eviction court, they can have people help them out with that. They can help with backup rent that they probably didn't pay for rent 2, 3 months because something happened. Maybe somebody got sick. Maybe they lost a job. We don't know. Everybody's such like people have this think like, oh my, people being lazy. No, people got fired from a job. A job probably burned down and they couldn't go. Like, there's so much reasons why somebody could stop working or not working at the moment, and instead of them just being lazy. Yeah, some people are lazy. Some people are a lot of things, but it's always a cause most of the time before, the effect kind of thing. So I think that's one way of kind of helping with the housing problem. See, to me, like prevention, not going to shelter, not being homeless, helping with the housing part, making sure that that part is together, making sure people get paid properly, and also making sure that women and men get paid the same and all races get paid the same. Why does a person who have to be a different race and a different gender have to get paid differently? I don't understand. If they're doing the same exact job, have the same exact qualifications, sometimes the woman has more and they're still getting paid less. That's also a problem. And I feel like we talk about it and talk about it and talk about it, and it's just like, it's a disconnect. Do we have to get people out of those offices who are not serving the people? And what do we do to get them out? We need people in offices to serve the people, especially if like we're voting you in there. We need people to serve the people because the people are crying. The people need help. The people is asking for it. They don't know what to do. They're running rampant. Hopefully next month this SNAP thing does not happen again. I'm sorry if it happens again and it affects your family. We'll be posting up any other food pantries. We did it. I feel like we did it recently also for this. I don't remember, to be honest. But if you need anything, definitely inbox me. I told people to DM me. I wasn't checking the inboxes that much before I was getting all sorts of spam. But now I'm back up on the emails. So I will be answering you guys as soon as possible. I'm only a one-person band in my group. If you want to be a part of my team and you're a lived experience person, I would love to have you. You will help with the podcast stuff. You'll help with social media and things like that. You'll help come out in outings with me when I do certain things. And yeah, we would love to add you to the team. So we have a lot of things happening for this new year. And if we have a policy team, we have a peer team. And I would definitely be sharing more policy stuff with you guys, what we're going to be working with in the new year, because we're definitely going to need, our group is small, but we're mighty, you know? But we definitely need more voices to jump on the bandwagon and make sure that we can be loud and proud about the services we would like to see, policies we like to see and change and properly implemented. Because another thing too is that like, a lot of policies are given out to the people, but nobody's enforcing the policy. And that's another thing too, is like if we got all these rules, why is nobody following them? And why if people don't follow them, they're not proper repercussions. So stay tuned and see what we have in store. We are a new team, the Family Action Board, and we are here for families in shelter who are the child under 21. Very specific because they have in New York City, they have other families with like adult children, or families just in general. And we are very niche. Some of the policies might actually help, depending what it is, help all populations, but we're very, very niche in this area, which is no problem. Sometimes our population, I think people think that we get so much, but we get left out of a lot of things. And being a parent is not easy. This day and age is very hard, especially if you're a single parent. And we want to make sure that we are voices for people who are like us and also a voice of people who are just homeless in general, right? I'm not a person who just says only family, family. I'm for all people who are homeless to get the proper education, care, love, empathy for, right? But in this podcast and group that I work in, we are definitely niche down to families with children to make sure that they have the proper things that they need, supplies and things like that. If we need anything else for next year from you guys, we definitely would tell you about it. And we definitely want to do some more stuff. We're going to try to go out more tabling. If you have events coming up, we would love to come to your events and give out pamphlets and stuff about resources or talk somebody through how to go to a shelter if they need to go to a safe haven, stuff like that. Um, a couple of people in our group have done the DV survivors. They'll be hopefully coming out soon. I should have done a recording, but people's schedules were very busy people in general. But they could tell you their experience of how they went through the system and how they got out of a shelter or how they got out of being double up and things like that. So that's a little bit what's coming up on the horizon. And if you're a person who loves to share their story and is not afraid, You don't have to show your face. You don't have to, all you gotta do is use your voice. And your voice is the most powerful thing. You don't forget to tell your name. You know how much quotes out there was anonymous? Your name does not matter. To me, your face matter, but in this context, your face doesn't matter. You just use your voice, and your voice speaks immensely, right? And that's what we should always never forget. Don't make them silence you. You have something to tell, and we have something to learn from. So, yes. Anyway, guys, thank you for coming here. Thank you for being amazing. And I see you next time. Thank you for coming back to hear our voices. Bye.